BookTube. Welcome to my author interview chat show. Tonight we are going to be talking to Bill Reeves, who is a young whippersnapper of a writer but has an amazing following on TikTok as it is, and his debut fantasy novel is going to be out this May 22. So I'm just going to check if he's around because we want to invite him to the show. There he is. Just going to add Bill and hopefully he will join us. There he is.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm excited.
Good. Yay. Me too. I've been wanting to get you on my show for ages, so I'm like rubbing my hands together with glee. How are you, young man? How is the book world going for you?
It is interesting. It's very overwhelming, especially with self-publishing, having to honestly just work out everything. But no, it's super fun.
Yeah, I cannot wait to hear about you and your journey and how you've got there. So first things first, your debut book is coming out this May.
Yeah.
Titled A Tempest of Emerald Dream. How did you come up with that title? Tell me about the title. How many titles have you had before that? Give me some information on
that. It went through a couple of titles. I had one which was like final before this, but then I did a big re-edit of the story and it just didn't make sense anymore. But this is one of the titles where if you read the book, you'll understand what it means.
Okay.
But really, I just like the words. I love the word Tempest. I was like, I've got to put that in there.
Yeah, it's very unusual and very, very in the fantasy genre. So when I looked at it, I thought, oh yeah, that's good. I like it. So can you give us, because I was looking at your Amazon page, which is very brief. I need more meat. I want to know more. Tell me more about this book. Tell me what to expect.
Yeah. Well, now that I'm my final edit's going in like in just over a week, so I'm writing up the final version of the description now. But I'm so bad at explaining this, so I like to explain it as kind of like your classic quest fantasy, but 2022ified in the fact that more diverse. You've got a bunch of different races and just sexualities. It's very because you find a lot of those classic when you think of the quest fantasies, you think of Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time, all that sort of thing, and very white. So I just wanted to make
that's true. Yeah.
So it's pretty much the main character. She is called Illyria, and she is she's just like a librarian. And then one day she is attacked by this unknown force, and she finds out that she has these powers and that she's the savior. So she has to go on a quest with her friends and her mom, but they're hiding a bunch of stuff from her as well. So it's very mysterious. But no, it's super fun.
She goes on a quest with her mum.
Yeah, her mum's there too.
I love that. That. So yeah, I do love that. So would you say this is young adult, new adult? Where are you pegging this?
Well, the characters are 20, but it is like there's nothing like super graphic in there. So it is like I'd say like high end young adult.
Appeal to, yeah. But I love that she's going off with her mum. I love that because yeah, do you know what I mean? I write young adult, and I've got to say, in all the books that I write, there is always at least one really strong relationship with one of the parents, if not both, and that they are part of the story because that's real life. And I love that you've got mum going with her and saving the day. I can't wait to read that. Yeah.
I find a lot of YA. There's so many books in YA where you'll see the parents at the very beginning and then you won't hear from them again. So I wanted to make sure, because it's a bit more realistic. Like your mom's not just going to forget about you. Something's happening to you. Like, no, yeah.
No, I think, I mean, it's hard to do because obviously you want the story to be the character's own adventure. So you kind of need to get the parents out of the way so that they can have their own adventure. But obviously, there is a call for having those close parental relationships, and not necessarily close, but having them present and actually having them navigate that and saying, no, actually, Mom, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way because that's my journey. So yeah, I love seeing that kind of dynamic in a book. I just want to get back to something you touched on about Lord of the Rings, etc., being very white. What do you think about the fact that he had elves and, you know, orcs, and he had all these other races? Do you think that was his nod towards other races, or do you think that didn't do enough to create those kind of dynamics?
I think I honestly, I don't think that was his intention at all, to be honest. I think he was just like do all these mythical and like magical creatures. But I don't know, it's just one of the things back in those times as well. People weren't so inclusive anyway. So
it's true.
It's a tricky question. So, yeah.
Well, I think, I mean, considering the timeline he wrote that in, probably not. Yeah, I think you're right. And have you seen the biopic of his life, Tolkien?
No, I haven't. No.
So good, so good. You should watch that if you're a fan. You should watch that. Good.
Yeah.
So this book, this is your baby. It's coming out soon. Tell me how you got the idea for this book to start with.
Oh, this one was been because I've written so many books over the years, but a lot of them just never. I don't know. You sometimes finish a book and you just don't feel amazing about it. But this one, I started like April last year, and I started like thinking of the idea, but it wasn't until probably July time where I sat down and fully wrote out a draft in like a week. And I don't know how I did that, but that first draft out in a week, and I sat back and I was like, oh, this is actually all right. But I honestly, I couldn't even tell you where the idea came from. It just came out of me. And I think especially I wanted to do this challenge where I wrote it so quickly so I could just have it out there. And I've just done so many like edits on it since that, I don't know, it's just changed completely.
I'm getting the feeling you did not plot this then.
I have this one. I've plotted it very, very. I pretty much on my wall. I've still got them like 12 post-it notes of just like key scenes, and I've written in between those scenes pretty much.
Yeah.
Where I was going and what I was going to end up at and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, fantasy. Not only do you have to plot, but you've got obviously your whole world building, you know, and I remember one of my editors sending me a document about, you know, is there magic? If so, what's the system, your currency, your politics, your, you know, your male versus female hierarchy, all of those things that when you sit down to write, you're not necessarily thinking about, you're thinking about your character and their journey, but, and the reader doesn't necessarily need to know all that information, but you do. It's a lot, isn't it? So have you used a professional editor, or how have you gone about that editing process?
So I started off with, honestly, I edited it because I was so nervous. Like, it's the first book I've ever actually decided to, okay, I want to do something with this. And because I have this platform now, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I started off, I edited it myself probably like 15 times before I sent it out for someone else to read. And then I'm getting it professionally, properly edited, like final edit in like a week or so. And then put that back on corrections, get it proofread, and it's pretty much done.
So the professional edit, are they looking at developmental stuff, or are you hoping for more line editing kind of things? Are you happy with your developmental?
I'm happy with the development because there's so many edits from me and some people. So this is just like the line editing and proofreading, really.
But how? I'm like, because when I first started writing and I would do my editing, and I'd be like, it's great, it's good to go, you know. But I don't think it took me a long time, I think, to understand how to edit or what to look for. So how have you come to be confident in self-editing, I guess, and knowing what to look for?
I think it helped because I did English at A level. Do screenwriting at uni as well, so that helps with like my dialogue and stuff as well. I don't know. I think I'm good at just finding stuff that doesn't need to be there, that adds nothing really to the story. And I've been lucky that the people that I have sent it to have all like a lot of them actually have done like English as well, so they have that sort of knowledge as well.
Right. Yeah.
And I've just had a good group of people around me, to be honest.
That's really lucky. That's because
Yeah.
when I edit, I like with developmental edits anyway, structure, big picture stuff, I always second guess myself, and I'm like, well, I could take that character out, or I could, and I need someone to tell me what to do. And I've written so many books now, and I still need that reassurance, because I'm afraid to make those big decisions unless I've had like 10 people tell me the same thing. You know, I find it, because I just feel like I'm going to make a big mistake to the story. Because you lose that visibility, I think, sometimes. So yeah, but I think if you can see that, I'm jealous. I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
I will say it was tricky because at a certain point in my book, there is like a split point of view where some characters get split up, and that was because I've never done that before, and that was a bit daunting at first. But I found it in the end of the like how to do it was just write one person's side of the story first, and then just interweave afterwards. Helped a lot with just creating like a consistent narrative. Really disjointed at times.
So is it third person then? I'm assuming.
Yeah,
it might not be. Yeah, because I mean, in my opinion, I think if you've got multi POV, it works better in third person, but that's just me. You know, obviously people do it different ways. So you mentioned English A level and you mentioned film school. So exciting. I'm about to do a film course next week, so I'm like, well, it's all about screenwriting, and I want to understand, and I've done one before, but I want to understand how to take the novel to, because it's built for novelists, the novel to the screen. But that's an aside. So besides that, have you done anything else that you think has helped you with how to write a novel? Besides real life experience, you know.
I guess like I used to post a lot on YouTube, and I used to do sometimes like some skit stuff, and I think that's helped me in terms of like pacing and like actually forming a proper story. But really, I don't know. I've always been quite a creative person anyway. I'm always thinking of ideas and story ideas and stuff like that. But I don't know.
Yeah. So what, are you still doing your film degree, or have you finished now?
Yeah.
Wow. So what has been your favorite part of that experience so far?
Well, it's film and screenwriting, so it's a bit of both. So doing the screenwriting, it's also like the looking into film. But my favorite part has been the actual screenwriting. Like my most recent assignment for that, we had to pretty much write a short film of a Greek myth. So I did Icarus, but it's like a modern day thing, in kind of in like the style of Evelyn Hugo through like the interviews, and you see how his life, he got really famous, and then he pretty much got too close to the sun, and his life crashed.
Super I love that.
But it's just those sort of things where you have these really creative prompts. It's just
I think it because I'm like that with short stories, because I cannot write a short story to save my ass, but if someone gives me a prompt, someone tells me what they want, then I can write that. But I'm much better with a novel length kind of thing. But I am so fascinated by the fact that you are doing both novel writing and screenwriting, because I think they are two different disciplines. And so a little bit of background. I have this friend who's a film producer, and she has worked on some huge stuff. And she wants me to write a screenplay for one of my books. And I'm like, but I don't know how to do that. Just make it happen without me. So, hence why I'm going on the screenwriting course. And I kind of think it's just a whole other thing. So when you are doing one or the other, do you have to get like a different hat on? I mean, or is it not that complicated for you? I mean, how do you go back and forth with knowing how to make that work?
I say it really messes with my brain, especially because I was doing like the main edits for A Tempest of Emerald Dream while I was doing this Icarus assignment last year, and
Yeah.
I got so, because A Tempest of Emerald Dream's in past tense, but then obviously when you're script writing, it's in for present tense,
Right.
and it was a mess. Like I sent it off to friends, and they're like, half of this is in a different tense, and I was like, no. It was awful.
Yeah, I get that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So screenwriting is always in present tense. Oh yeah, I guess because it's all dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Effectively. From what little I know.
It is.
I'm
I think then is present tense. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so ill prepared for this course, but I'm going to do my best. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, where do you see? I mean, do you see yourself doing both as you move forward? I mean, where do you see your career going?
I mean, I definitely enjoy novel writing more than I do script writing, but I just love the film industry as a whole. Like I've always loved film. So it's tricky. Like in a perfect world, it would be both. But obviously, self-publishing my own books is a lot more accessible than
Yes.
films and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's one of I love both industries, so it's hard to choose really.
So what will happen at the end of your degree? Will you have access to contacts in the film industry that you can submit things to, or how does that work for you?
I believe so. I know because I'm in the middle. We've just been put in groups to make a short film in with all the different film courses. So we're doing a proper short film at the moment. And then in my final year next year, we'll be doing a full length feature, or I'll be writing a full screenplay. So that's when I think we'll be put in contact with those sort of people. But because the uni I go to is quite a good has quite a good film course. My lecturers are all work in the industry as well, so I hope that it will help.
Go that way, yeah. And will you have the freedom? Like, obviously, you're a fantasy buff, so will you have the freedom to go into that genre for your final piece, or will it be more scripted than that? Do you think?
I don't think fantasy would be that accessible considering all the effects and stuff. But I love writing, especially in scripts horror. I'm like a massive Halloween and Scream fan. Like loads of my assignments before have been horror stuff, and my book now is horror as well. Yeah, it is. It's very exciting.
That really excites me because I mean, horror is my jam, and I read mostly horror. Oh yeah, look at that, my baby, it's my baby girl. yeah, I do. I've been reading a lot lately. At the moment, I've got to say, the Halloweens and the Jasons and the Freddys. When I was younger, I lived in California, and it was when one of the Nightmares on Elm Street came out, and I went to my video shop. Yes, I'm that old. And there was an A2 poster of Freddy Krueger. I was 10 years old, scared the crap out of me, and I was like, "Well, I'm never watching that." So I think I've seen bits. So that those real slasher films don't do much for me. I much prefer that supernatural, spine-tingling, Blair Witchy, What Lies Beneath. Although I will say, I think Scream was genius because it was such a satire to all those other films. It was smart. So I do love Scream as well. But I love horror, and I think some of my favourites probably are The Shining. The Descent. Have you seen The Descent? When they go into the cave.
Yeah.
I thought that was just phenomenal. Yeah. I like, and my criticism, I would say, of horror films today is character development, because you get maybe 5 seconds before all goes knife, blood, spirit, and I'm like, well, who gives a shit? I love it when you get to care about a character, which is what I think The Shining and The Descent did really well. So what would you say some of your favorite horror books or films are that you admire?
Okay, I'll start with film because I'm definitely more well versed in the horror film. It's only recently I've been getting the horror books. But film, I mean, I do have an appreciation for the classics, obviously, like Halloween. I just think is great. But then when I think of a film that I could rewatch over and over, it is Scream. As you said, it's just so like masterfully crafted, like how it like balances the comedy and horror so perfectly. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
And then the opening scene of that film is just insane.
Oh yeah, I was literally just reading the screenplay for that because that's available.
I study it all the time.
Yeah, and so I've literally read that first one with with Drew Barrymore, and I was like, it really is just dialogue, and I was like, it was so cleverly done. So I've been starting to read screenplays just to get my head in it, and I was thinking, the screenplays even is so clever. So yeah.
That's I love reading screenplays as well. I have a bunch like physical screenplays because they're just obviously they're so quick to get through as well. Obviously a lot quicker than books.
That's true. To
say the Scream one, I study all the time when I'm doing my screenplays because my newest book has like a Scream-esque opening because I just love it so much. I love how first 10 minutes dead, everything's off the cards, anything can happen. Like I love that.
Very very George R.R. Martin to just kill off whoever. Yeah. I'm watching Game of Thrones with my eldest two children at the moment, and so we recently went through the Red Wedding, and they were like, I'm assuming you've seen Game of Thrones. Yeah. They were like, what?
I haven't
killed Rob Stark. What? And I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, just you wait, I mean, masterful. And I actually think the best example of foreshadowing I've ever seen is with Hodor. I mean, 6 seasons of foreshadowing. I just thought that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I mean, the planning of that was astonishing. Wow. Incredible. Really incredible. Yeah. I love it. Phenomenal. Okay. So you mentioned that this book is the one that you've decided to send out, but you've written a lot more. Tell me when you started writing and how many you've written then. Tell me a bit about that.
Oh, I've definitely written a lot more short stories than actual full-length novels. I think I have probably like 4 or 5 finished on a hard drive, and they're all pretty much like in the same fantasy vein because I don't know, that's just what I really grew up with. I grew up reading like Aragon, and then I just had other like the low fantasy, so like The Witches by Roald Dahl I was obsessed with. Even like like I was and Narnia. It was adored. When I was younger, my auntie gave me her copies from the 80s of like Narnia, Matilda, and I just read them over and over again. I was like, this is what I love to write, to read, to watch. So I just like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
But I was actually going through some of the old books today, literally earlier, and they're so not good. But you just, it's, I don't know. I can
see my journey. Yeah, it's the practice. It's you write something and then, but it doesn't mean to say you can't go back to those with the knowledge that you have now and apply that. And in some ways, it might be better just to rewrite the damn thing, which I'm facing with a couple of books. So it's funny that you mentioned Narnia because my 9-year-old has just been reading that at school, and I've been thinking about world building and rules. So one of my latest books is a young adult horror, and it's about there's a time loop in it. And the balance of trying to explain to the reader what's going on, but with also them not knowing what's going on, it's been really hard for me to figure out. So I said to him, when they go through the wardrobe, and he's like, yeah. And I said, does it ever explain why sometimes it opens to Narnia and sometimes it doesn't? And he's like, no. I mean, it's been years since I've read it. So what's your impression on that? Because, I mean, I don't think that's ever addressed, why sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
I feel like there's not really an explanation for it. I feel like it's a plot so like you could feel for Lucy in that moment when she tries and take her sibling. I think it works really well in the story, but when you think about it, it's like it doesn't really make sense. No,
I think it works really well, and I love that idea. But I think if it was published today, an agent or a publisher would be saying, yeah, but why does it open and then why does it not? I think they would be interrogating that a bit more, which is sad in a way because I don't think it needs that. but that's what we're up against these days. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you have to really explain everything. It's like, because
Yeah.
it is just because, you know.
I it really especially works for that because it's so much more mysterious as well, and it keeps that level of mystery. Like, I feel like if you explain everything, you have no questions for yourself. You have nothing to think about after you.
Exactly. Yeah. You need a little bit of wonder, and you need to leave things to the reader's viewpoint. And yeah, I think you're totally right. Absolutely. Yeah. So you are self-publishing this amazing book that's coming out, and I have loved watching your journey from your cover reveals. I mean, you have nailed suspense, I've got to
Yeah.
say, with every stage of your journey, and got people just waiting. What made you decide to self-publish rather than go down the traditional route?
Honestly, I'm impatient, and I didn't want to wait because obviously the publishing industry is probably one of the slowest industries ever. Still, it takes years and years for things to happen. Um, and I think also the fact that with self-publishing, I get to call all the shots, and I'm such a perfectionist. Especially with, like, say, like the cover, I would be very annoyed if I like my cover, and obviously in traditional publishing, you don't get a massive. Well, it depends on the publisher, but you don't get a massive input a lot of the time. And so it's really just me being selfish and wanting to have a pretty cover, I think.
I don't think it's selfish at all. I think it's all about control. And what I love about your generation and authors coming up and book talk authors is that there isn't even a question that people would go the traditional route. It is, why would I sit there for for months, for years, waiting for somebody to give me validation when I can do this myself, you know? And I think that is an amazing attitude, and I think that's what is going to change publishing. I think it already is, as book talk has already proven. So
Yeah.
So as we're talking about book talk, how long have you been here, and what made you think to get on here?
It's I joined I've been on TikTok for years, but I made a BookTok account last June, I think it was. And I was just bored because uni had finished for the year, and I'd started to read more. And I used to be massive on booktube years and years ago. So I was like, I'll check out what BookTok's like because I saw some tweets about it, and it's just such like a lovely community on here.
So much nicer.
Yeah,
Yeah. Than other
because
places.
it wasn't until like September that I started like talking about my book. So like the time before, I read this. This is what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're Bill Reads. You're now going to have an account that says Bill Writes. You know, clearly.
Yeah.
Or something. Or Bill Reads and Writes. I can do both, Mom. That would be great. There you go. So, what were some of the books that we've mentioned a bit about horror. Oh, have you read Dean Koontz?
I haven't, no.
He's my favourite author, and he's all about the horror. And you need to go read him immediately. That's a little aside. Yeah.
Make a note.
Yeah, he's brilliant. I much prefer him to Stephen King, to be honest.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I do. Stephen King can be really hit and miss for me. Dean Koontz is reliable. Yeah, I think he taught me everything there is to know about tension and pace. And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh yeah, your childhood inspirations. So what were some of your favorite books while you were growing up that kind of, I mean, did you always read fantasy? You mentioned Matilda, you mentioned The Witches. Were you always into fantasy, or, you know, did you know that's where you wanted to be as a writer?
I think the majority of the time was fantasy, because I grew up with Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, it's as like the usuals, and then definitely my uncle used to play World of Warcraft all the whole time. I was so fascinated by it, so I like that. Obviously, that's very similar vein to Lord of the Rings as well. And then as I grew up, that's when I branched out to every
yeah. And are you a Stranger Things fan as well?
only watched the first season, which is crazy because it's so down my alley. But I don't watch much TV. I'm much more a film buff.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
it makes no
I
sense,
think it.
like 80s media as well. So it's very strange that I've not watched more of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's. I mean, it's a masterclass in so many different things. Yeah. It's worth watching it just from a studying it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So this book that you've written, what was the hardest part for you?
Oh, I think with all my books as well, it's just the initial starting. I just find it so difficult to not exactly plan the story, because I can get out like my plan for the story quite quickly, even though I go back and forth. It's just putting pen to paper or finger to keyboard, I guess, and actually starting, because I end up rewriting my first chapters a lot of the time anyway. But I don't know, it's just very daunting. Like when you say, okay, it's got to be 70,000 words, it's got to be 80,000 words, and it's a lot of words. It's just very
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah. I think when you look at that in that way, and I think the more books you write, the more you learn about yourself, and the more you think, okay, if 80,000 words is a daunting thing to me, I'm just gonna aim for my first 10,000, and then I'll go for the next 10,000. You learn your habits, don't you? I think, and really what spurs you on, and what terrifies you. I mean, editing still terrifies me. So no matter how many times I've done it, it's not my happy place.
Yeah.
I complain about it all the time, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So, do you have a scene or a character that you really love in this book that's coming out?
Yes, and everyone who's read the book has the exact same favorite as well. There's a character called Tanith who's one of Illyria's best friends, and he's just that classic, super sarcastic, funny best friend. But he has like a massive character arc, and he's like, I see Jasmine's agreeing with me. She says he's my fave. He's just so lovely, and his arc in the book, like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I did it very well.
Really, really well. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And did you have a moment in the book where everything was coming together and you're writing a scene and you just had that little smile on your face and you think, this is what it's all about?
Yeah, honestly, the sad parts, I was like, oh, this is so sad, but like, it's just
working.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I just pre-ordered it from your website. And I've got to say, I think you're very savvy because your website's very cool.
Thanks.
And but we're charging for signatures. And I'm thinking, well, I don't get unsigned books because, I know a lot of authors now, all my books have to be signed. So of course I had to get a signed copy. I thought that was very savvy of you to up your price for very good marketing strategy, I must say. Good for you.
Because when I was website, I have some family who do like web design and stuff. Like I did this all by myself, but when they were doing it, I was with one of my friends who does it, and they were like, "No, you should charge more for the sign thing." I was like, "Are you sure?" But I did it, and like I was surprised that most of has ordered sign, and it's just crazy to me.
Absolutely, I would always order a signed copy, and I think actually when I've been at book festivals, I mean, I would sign things anyway, but people have actually said to me, well, I'll pay you extra if you sign it. I'm like, it's okay, I'm going to sign it anyway. But I think it's a really clever thing to do. I really do. I might have to go and change my online store. That's good. It's really good. So beyond having an amazing following on BookTok, which obviously, I mean, you are like a BookTok darling and you have got so much support. Do you have other marketing strategies to help maintain this book, maintain the series? What's your plan, going forward?
I definitely have a bunch of stuff in my drafts and like just notes of ideas. I've tried to like I definitely have my off days where I just sit there and I'm like, what else can I do to post about this book? But
Yeah.
I find all the time the videos that do really well and like have like just blown up about my book are the ones that you don't expect to. They're the ones that this is all right, I'll post it. But I found that people just love to hear that a book is just different to everything that's being, I say it's very different, but like just more, as we said earlier, diverse. Just certain traits. When you talk about things that book talk loves, they love enemies to lovers, they love all tropes. So you've just got to make sure that you like put those towards the beginning of the video. Like, oh, let me stick around for this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. And personally, I really like lovers to enemies.
Yeah,
I want to see more. I want to see more of that because I think that's I mean, that's almost more cutting, isn't it? You think they're together, and then they're like, no, that's not. Yeah, I'd like to see, and morally grey characters. Obviously, that's a book talk favorite. So you know, as I'm writing notes for new books, I'm writing down all these tropes, thinking, okay, I've got to incorporate that. You know, yeah. But obviously, so beyond book talk, do you think you might look into Amazon ads or you know, BookBub deals or things like that?
I definitely do want to look into the Amazon ads. Like, I don't know pricing and stuff for that. I'll definitely look into it. Also had, which was really cool, I had a couple of like independent bookshops email me saying they want to get some stock for when it comes out, which is really cool. Yeah, it's just
it's good.
I think as I release more and more books, I'll get more accustomed to what to do as well. Because it's the first time, I just feel like everything's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you feel your way around in the dark a bit, and I think you know, what works for one author doesn't work for the next author, and it's genre dependent, and you know, there's so many variables that you can't really copy what someone else is doing. It's you kind of find your own way and listen and take advice, and then just figure out what you think might work for you. And so this book, how many books are there going to be in this series?
It's not going to be a traditional series. It is going to be a bunch of different books set in the same world. The story wraps. I do think we'll come back to these characters again. I'm also planning. There's a couple in this book whoever I've got a short story about them, which I do want to publish as well as like a prequel as well. But yeah, it has a good ending, and I feel like a lot of the times, especially with traditionally published stuff, that the publishers, because the book did well, they forced them to make it more books than it could be. And I want to do that. There's definitely more stories in the world, but I want to release this other book next first before.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. Wow. Yeah, I love the idea of books in the same world but with different characters, which I think is what A.K. Mulford's doing with her series as well. And I think it's incredible. But also, so your main character for this book is a female. How did you decide to say, I'm going to write the opposite sex to me? And how did you feel comfortable doing that? Talk me through that decision. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, a lot of people have told me that, to be honest. And I don't know. I think it's purely because most of the books I read, I think it's not even like it's intentional. Most of the books I read are written by female authors. And I feel like that's because a big majority of popular YA authors are female anyway. So I've just got to the point where it's just, I'm very used to reading female characters. It's not, I don't think it's even that much of a big deal because the two side characters are male and they are also integral parts of the story as well. So kind of there's like three main characters. Well, I say Alira is like the main character. But I don't know. I think I've done all right. Because it is such a big pet peeve. Like when I'm reading, I've been going through a bunch of like like old fantasy 90s stories. Like I Jim Butcher's Stormfront, and instantly like the portrayal of women in that book was gross.
Yeah.
And well, I haven't done that, so
Yeah. Well, hurrah!
yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And I think, do you know, I mean, when I was growing up, which obviously well before you, so I have an older brother and he read high fantasy and he was into Pratchett and David Gemmell and you know, fantasy. I prefer, well, traditionally I prefer my fantasy grounded in reality, so more kind of urban, you know. But I am coming round to more. I mean, I've read Lord of the Rings, and I love Lord of the Rings, and I love there are books that I love. But I think that traditionally it was all male authors, whereas now, especially in the YA field, there's a lot of the females have really taken over. Maybe the males still dominate with science fiction, but I think we're almost, you know, and there was always the female power. We've got to give girls a voice with the Me Too movement, blah 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 blah. But we're almost forgetting about the boys again. You know, when I think I've got 3 sons, and I think all the books that they might be interested in actually all have female characters, where we actually need to write a bit more about the boys again, or both, as you say. If you've got 3 main characters, that you can do, you know, that. And that's what I tried to do with my newest book with Luna, because although Luna is on the title, she's not actually the main character. It's a male that's the main character. So because I want to get teenage boys back into reading and being the heroes of that journey. So it's just finding that balance, which is hard, where we're swinging around so much at the moment, and it's tricky. Really tricky
as well. That's like a big divide with like in the movie scene as well, where they'll be producing these movies for people to obviously watch, and then say trying to think, like the new when they did the new Charlie's Angels, or even just anything like the new Ghostbusters, they did the all-female cast. And personally, I don't think it's bad, as everyone said, but a lot like the films that have like an all-female cast, say like Wonder Woman, they've done it better because they have the male lead to back up the female lead. So then it what's the word? Then more. I can't think of how to word this. It appeals to both.
Right.
To everyone.
Both genders.
There's a bit.
Or to everyone, or all genders. Yeah. Even. Yeah. I think that's the key, is that because we are now having a society where whoever you are is okay, and trying to represent that we need to reflect that in our writing. Now, I couldn't write a gender fluid character because that's not where I'm from, and that would be outside my space. But I would want to be as inclusive as I possibly could, so that all are welcome. You know, absolutely. We can only strive to do that. And to make sure that we're not having those dominant men. And that's one of the things I loved about Game of Thrones. We had, you know, Khaleesi just kind of stonking ass against the Dothraki and saying, no, I'm going to lead you. You can bow down, and I'm going to walk out naked from a fire, and that's me.
Yeah.
All right then. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. There we go. So do you have any interesting writing quirks that you want to share?
I know, I can't remember what it was now, but I know I feel like everyone has those certain things that they always do, where the editor always brings up, like everyone has that. I can't remember what it was now. I remember Jasmine called me out on it a couple of weeks ago, but I definitely do. But I definitely can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, I had a habit. There's one manuscript I went through, and it was for a moment. I used to say that far too often. And for a while, just was one of my, and I think I'm clued up with that now. But I still do it. I still do a find for it, because I know I've probably got more than I need. Just those filter words that you need to just kind of iron out, and some expressions that, and I've basically read a couple of novels, and you get like regional expressions that crop up. I'm like, I don't know what that means, and so I'll highlight it and saying, this is not going to be understood outside of your town, because it means nothing, you know. So I hope that's got some funky juice in it. Has it got
Oh,
anything exciting?
unfortunately, no.
Oh,
I will say one thing I do always say. I just remembered. I always say seemingly a lot, and I always get caught up on that. I don't know why. I just say it a lot for some reason.
yeah, that's anywhere I have seemed. That's something I do a find on as well to try and get rid of. So
Yeah,
seemingly seems, it seems,
yeah,
yeah, because you don't want to say it seemed, you just want to tell it how it is. So it's like, and
yeah.
I've got to say, have you got the Emotional Thesaurus? The Emotional Thesaurus?
I don't know.
It's a really good book for emotions. So, fear, anger, jealousy, all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
And, because you get stuck in your crutches, nodded, shrugging, blinking, whatever
yeah,
your crutch phrases are. And it just gives you those alternates to think of stuff that you wouldn't, not in your repertoire, and then add a few more things. And I've actually ordered the whole, I think there's about 10 books in the series, and they're not complicated. They're
yeah.
just so. But speaking of like craft books, I'm assuming there must be things that you have read for your film school, like Save the Cat.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Have you done the Save the Cat for novelists? Because I've got that on my desk at the moment. I'm about to dive into that. So, what
Yeah.
kind of craft books have you read that you think have helped with your writing?
Save
What
the
would you
Cat definitely
recommend?
helped. Well, Save the Cat, I think is great. Especially that helped me with structure and actually like plotting and stuff like that. I also have a Stephen King novel writing one as well. I don't know
So
exactly
on
where it
writing,
is. I think it is.
on
Yeah,
writing. Yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah.
I
That's a good
also
one.
have yeah I also have a book which I got in English, but it's a guide to English language, and it's a super super short book, but it just helps a lot of the time with just grammar, because a lot of the time you'll be doing so big into world building and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
you just forget grammar bits and bobs, and it's just easy to go back and
yeah.
just check you're doing everything right.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So when you do your world building, do you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach that? Do you write maps, or do you write documents on what your world is, or do you just kind of go with the flow?
I definitely I have to make sure I have my character down first, the main cast of characters that I'm gonna have, and I yeah. But what was interesting with this book, because there's like a religion in it as well, I had to go back and go do the history for that as well. Um, it was definitely interesting, but I've got like documents and like research and like mind maps, and I have like as well which I made just to make sure I didn't forget.
That's
Um,
amazing.
because it's a quest thing as well, I've got to make sure that it's not going to be inconsistent or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think creating a whole religion, and it's funny that you mentioned that because rewatching Game of Thrones and you're thinking about the old gods and the new and what that means in that transition period. I mean, not only did he have one religion, he had two religions.
mm,
And the transition between that, I just thought that's so complicated. I cannot imagine what his war looked like.
yeah,
Trying to figure that all out. It's
yeah,
incredible. Religion is, yeah, that's super complicated.
mm,
And I think it's one of the reasons I try not to write high fantasy, although I am now starting to, but I'm reluctantly, because it's almost like writing historical fiction, because the research it is the same.
mm-hmm.
You know, either you're looking it up or you're making it up, but it's as detailed as. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I was gonna say I love the idea of doing like a Greek mythology retelling, but like
Yeah.
search that would have to take, and I'm like, I don't really want to do that.
I'm desperate to do a Pandora retelling.
Ooh,
Her story fascinates me,
mm,
and it's been in the back of my mind for a long time. I love Greek. I did Latin and Greek, and I would love to do Pandora. And as you mentioned, Icarus is one of my favorites. I just there's so much you can do with that character. I think it's incredible. So
yeah,
yeah, I just haven't found my way into it. Although my initial, because of the horror vibe, I want to do a young adult Dracula origin story. So
ooh,
I'm
that
still Yeah, I'm still working my way into that. So I'm in the process of watching and reading Bram Stoker's Dracula just to give me some ideas.
Mm.
Obviously, it will have to be different because it's got to be an origin story and it's got
Yeah,
to be modern. But
yeah.
yeah, it's been on my mind for a while, and I'm gonna
I
get
do
there.
love, yeah, I do love a good vampire story. I feel like
Yeah.
we're to have like a vampire renaissance, so that'll be fun. Obviously, I feel like everyone had a Twilight phase and stuff. I have definitely written my own vampire books in the past.
Yeah.
I love how there are trends, but I do miss sort of stuff as well.
I've always loved a vampire book, and I have done Anne Rice, and I've done Lost Boys, and I have done all the vampire books. I've done Twilight, and I
Mhm.
love them all. And what I hate is when the gatekeepers will say, "Oh, but vampires, no one's reading vampires anymore." But those people that love vampires will always read vampires. And
Mm.
I have actually written the first of a trilogy of a high fantasy vampire. Um,
Ooh,
it needs more world building,
yeah.
uh, but I believe, and it took me 5 years of thinking time because I was trying to think of
Mm.
my fresh angle. And like, well, and then somehow I got re-inspired by watching all of Buffy all over again.
I love
Um,
Buffy.
I love Buffy. I love Buffy. Buffy.
I
Uh,
just
but
reading the
it,
new book actually. It was really good.
yeah, yeah. I just I want a reboot. I want just a movie, a Buffy movie.
Yeah,
That would
it
be
really
cool.
love. Yeah.
Very exciting. That's very
Mm.
exciting. Yeah. So this it ended up being high fantasy, which I wasn't expecting. But it does need more. I need to spend more time with the world building, and I need to spend more time with the character art because it's a trilogy. It's not just
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I'll get to that. There's a lot of editing in my future, and I want to write fresh. It's
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to the fun questions,
Oh,
or
okay.
some people think they're the evil questions,
Uh,
depending. We shall see. Okay, as a writer, what would you choose as your spirit animal?
oh, a spirit
Mm.
animal. Um. Uh, uh, the first thing that came to mind was an elephant, and I don't know why.
I
Uh,
love it. Strength, wisdom.
sure.
Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go
Yeah.
with that. Are there any animals in your book?
There's like mythological stuff. There's drag what anything you can think of. This the main ones are dragons and hippogriffs. Uh there's more hippogriffs than dragons. But no, I love like the
What's
classic
what's a hippogriff?
hippogriff is a mix of a griffin and it's like Buckbeak from Harry Potter. I forget what it's a mix of. Wait, look,
Because a
hold on.
griffin is already a bird and a lion.
Hippogriff is body of a horse and wings of an eagle. That's it.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
I got.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Hip horse. It should be a heagle or a.
yeah.
Because I'm thinking half hippo, half something else. You know,
That would be terrifying.
that's what I had terror in my mind. Yeah, but yeah, a heagle. I like a heagle. We're gonna rename that. Yeah. All right. So if you could only drink one drink and eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be? It doesn't have to be healthy. Just be whatever you want.
Ooh, ah, you know what? I love Oasis. I think that is an incredible drink. I don't think I could drink it forever though. I would. This is difficult.
Mm.
I don't know. Food, I'll probably just go with pizza. I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with pizza. Pizza's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah. I agree. Okay, what is your favorite color?
yellow.
Yellow.
I love
Has it
yellow.
all? Yeah. Has it always been your favorite color?
It used to be orange. I changed a bit on the color spectrum, but it's still similar.
Yeah, or cheerful, happy color. I love that.
Yeah, definitely
I
like
don't get yellow often. That's good. I like yellow. Um,
a.
pets. Have you got pets? I know you've got a dog. Dog?
Yeah,
Dog. Yeah.
yeah.
What is she? What kind of dog? She's a Staffy.
Yeah, she's a Staffy. Yeah.
No, she's a Staffy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's her name?
Macy.
Macy.
Mm-hmm.
Very cute. Any other pets, or is it just the one girl for you?
Just the one. We used to have a fish, but obviously fishes don't last.
They do not. That's true.
No.
Okay, this is going to be interesting. Marvel or DC?
I always have the same answer to this question. Movie wise, Marvel. Comics wise, DC. I've gone through so many of the DC comics, and the characters are just a lot more interesting, I guess.
I think there's more depth in DC characters. There's more trauma. There's more backstory. There's more of that.
Yeah.
But with Marvel, there's more action, there's more one-liners, there's more jokes, there's more, when you think about cinematically.
Yeah.
Although I love, and you probably won't have seen this as you only watch movies, Titans on Netflix.
Titans is the one thing I have watched.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love Titans. Titans is really, really good. Yeah.
I love Titans because it just felt like a comic. A lot of the shows,
yeah,
a lot of the DC like Flash and Arrow, they just got really, I don't know, as they went on, they just a bit ridiculous. But Titans, it embraces its ridiculousness, I think.
I agree with you. I mean, I didn't finish Arrow. I think I watched the end of season 4. And I don't know why I didn't. And I loved Smallville back in the day. I don't know if you've seen that. Back in the day, Smallville. I love Smallville. Flash, yeah, my son was really into Flash. I got into that. But Titans, for me, it was about all the underdogs, about superheroes almost going wrong, and making bad choices, the morally grey. And I think that's what DC does really well, is that morally grey, not always doing what they're supposed to do, which is also leads me on very nicely to the Amazon Prime series of The Boys. Mm-hmm. Please tell me you've watched that, because that is phenomenal.
I've watched I never got around to the second one.
So good. It just takes all of those superhero expectations and twists it, and it is the best subversion of anything I've ever seen. It's genius. It's genius.
It really is.
So much so that it's inspired me to write a YA version of something similar. So
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. What 3 books would you give to an alien or take to a desert island?
See, I feel like I'm just gonna say my favorite books now.
Well, yeah, but would you give your favorite books to an alien? You can take your favorite books to a desert island, but would you give them to an alien? What do you want an alien to learn?
Oh, that is tricky. Well, let's give an alien Twilight for the fun.
I love it.
I'm just looking at the shelves now. We'll give an alien A Little Life so they can cry.
Oh, okay. So, what did you think of A Little Life? I'm going to have to ask you now. Did you finish A Little Life?
I finished it. It took me a very long time. I had to keep putting it down because it was. I feel like there's different types of books. There's the ones where they're sad for a reason, and then there's A Little Life where it just felt like it was sad to make you like cry. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't love it that much. I know some people do, but it wasn't really for me.
I don't DNF books. I DNF'd A Little Life.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it all over BookTok, and every time I see it, I'm like, fuck's sake. I just, it was not for me. Let's leave it there. Not for me.
I think I've DNF'd about 3 books in my life. Yeah. A Little Life was one until I eventually picked it up. I do have the author's newer book because people said it's not very sad, so I'll try that. But,
yeah. There we go. Okay, so Twilight, A Little Life. Okay, you're going to give A Little Life to an alien. Okay? Teach them sadness. Teach them humility.
Yeah. And then I'll just give them Evelyn Hugo. I love that book.
I haven't read it yet. I'm about to read it for my book club, actually. It was my
Incredible.
choice.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
It's so good.
Yeah. Good. Okay. And so what are your 3 favorite books then? What are you taking to the island with you?
Evelyn Hugo.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I loved I started The Witch Time. I've only read the first book. I loved that first book. I need like a comfort read as well. You know what? Let's say Clockwork Princess. It's the 3rd book in the Infernal Devices.
Yeah.
I don't read much historical fiction, but Cassandra Clare just did it perfectly with that series.
Right. I haven't read that. I've watched some of the series, but I haven't read it. Don't know if I will.
It's something. It's one of those series that if I had started it now, I wouldn't have read it, because I think the actual Mortal Instruments series is not very good, but the spin-offs that she's done are so much better. I think it helps as well. Better of a writer now as well. Yeah. I think it's just I'm very attached to those characters now, so I feel like I'll just read it for the rest.
Yeah. Oh, that happens. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Your final question, young man, and you are free to go. Have you got any talents that would help you survive the Hunger Games?
No. I was in Cubs for like 3 years when I was very young. I say when I was 10, but I can't remember. I couldn't even tie a knot. So
did you get any badges? Do you remember?
Yeah, I got loads of them, but I wouldn't say I was very good. I was like the main, was it a sixer? I was like the main person, but I was never good.
Oh, I love it. You should just try hard, you know? Yeah. Me neither. There's not much I could do. I mean, in the second Hunger Games, I can swim, so I might be able to stay afloat during the whole spinny thing.
Perfect.
Apart from that,
I was gonna say very fast. I haven't got much going for me.
No. We have to stage a protest and climb on top of the cornucopia, and that would be that. Yeah, us writers who write these things aren't actually very good in real life, are we?
We'll do the daily news during the Hunger Games for everyone. That's all.
I love the Hunger Games. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. That's one of my comfort reads I would take to my desert island.
That's actually good. I've been rereading them at the moment, and it's just.
I think I rewatch more than I reread, just because I've got so much to read. That when I'm just, it's when you need a duvet day, and you just think, it's Twilight or it's Hunger Games. I'm like, I'm going to just watch the whole thing.
What's your favorite Hunger Games movie?
I think, to be honest, I think probably the first one, because I think it does so well in establishing the world and the character and just that moment. I don't love it as much when she is rescued from the arena and the war, inevitably you've got to go there. But I much prefer the earlier stages of something. You think about a TV series that has like 10 seasons, like The Walking Dead, for instance. Those first 1 or 2 seasons, I think, are always so much better in terms of that immediate threat before you go to that civilization and that civilization. So I always prefer that initial
definitely
terror, I think.
Yeah. I feel like most TV
really enjoy
after the 3rd season, they always get downhill.
Yeah, they just lose it. Yeah, because they just don't maintain. Although because I'm so loyal, I will keep watching things even if I'm not.
Yeah.
And actually I think, I don't know if you're into The Walking Dead, but Fear the Walking Dead I think is much better than The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Once Rick left, I'm like,
Yeah.
But Negan.
It happens to so many shows where you get I did it with The Vampire Diaries. I hated the last season. I didn't
watch the last season. Yeah.
I was like, to watch it now, and it wasn't worth it, but hey ho.
I keep thinking to go back and watch the last season. I think once Elena, whatever her name is, was wherever she was, I kind of gave up on it. And I tell you what, I did watch all the way through and loved all the way through was Supernatural. I love Supernatural, and I actually did a post recently because I was late. They had aired the last season and I didn't see it, so I had to wait a year for it to come back out, and I was in floods of tears watching the last season. I was doing a TikTok about this is me watching the last episode ever. And again, this is another show that I've got a 6-book series I want to write. I'm not going to say fan fiction, but it's kind of a similar world. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Inspiration.
I've got so many books like that. Like I was massive growing up on Scooby-Doo. That's why my next book out is kind of like Scooby-Doo fan fiction. It was like if Scooby-Doo was a bit darker. It's kind of like Scooby-Doo meets Scream, and I think it's just so fun. It's fun because like if you change it enough, like you can release it. So it's fun.
Yeah. I love that comparison because I also grew up on Scooby-Doo. I think I cannot tell you how many hours of Scooby-Doo I watched.
I still watch it.
Scooby-Doo in spring. Yeah, I think that's incredible. I cannot wait to see what that turns out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really, really good. Yeah, I mean, recently I have been reading, so I read The Troop by Nick Cutter. And then I'm in the middle of Nosferatu by Joe Hill.
Oh wow!
So he recommended to me, so I'm listening to that, and that I'm really enjoying that. It's good. I love the horror stuff. So, but go and check out Dean Koontz because I think you might like him. So,
do you have a specific book that you recommend?
Well, my favorite is Watchers, but that is late 80s, so it's probably going to be quite dated, but it did inspire the Unadjusters trilogy from a genetic modification point of view.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. But to be honest, any Mr. Murder, Lightning, The Vision.
Okay.
And you can pick out any of his books, to be honest. And actually, his Odd Thomas series is really good. I think you'll like that specifically. Look for Odd Thomas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll like that. Right, I'm going to let you go, young man, because we've been chatting for a long time. Thank you so much for joining me. This will be on YouTube, and I will send you the link, and we will go from there. And do keep in touch and let me know how things are going. And all the best to your debut. And I cannot wait to get my copy.
Thank you.
All right. Talk soon.
Yeah. Bye.
And that was William Woods. What an exciting chat we had. Please go and have a look at his debut, A Tempest of Emerald Dream. It sounds fantastic. What an amazing, talented young person who's not only at film school, but is an author as well. Oh, incredible. Do go and support him and pre-order his book.